us today. We're here to highlight what we're working on together from the federal, state, local level to improve public transportation, and specifically what we're doing to improve low emission or no emission vehicles. So UTA was nice to park one of their electric buses here today. This is it? This is it. So they parked one of their brand new electric buses here today. I understand it'll be put into service later this summer, but UTA Board Chair Carlton Christensen will talk more about that in a minute. Congress is right now drafting transportation and infrastructure legislation to allocate annual funding for the Federal Highway Trust Fund. That's the fund that all Americans pay into through your gas tax and other things to fund federal investments in our transportation network. And I met yesterday with various mayors and UDOT and government officials to talk about that federal legislation that we're working to move forward. I also gave the House Transportation Committee leadership my list of priorities about what I'm going to be advocating for a few weeks ago. And after meeting with Utah transportation officials, including UDOT, Wasatch Front Regional Council, and UTA to help inform what those priorities are for Utah. Now, we all know that Utah's air pollution issues continue to be a top concern for our state and local agencies and for local elected officials. And so with that in mind, that really informed the approach that I took to the priorities in any federal transportation legislation. Air pollution along the Wasatch Front, our wintertime inversions, and summer ozone. Really is a serious health threat, as we all know, as well as a concern for our schools, our businesses, and our economic development leaders. So the latest study in all of this was news this last week from the American Thoracic Society. They ranked Salt Lake City 6th in the nation for the greatest increase in health impacts from ground level ozone. And that's really the pollutant that we see most predominantly in these summer months. Ozone is a harmful pollutant that occurs and breathing it can trigger chest pain, worsen bronchitis, emphysema, and asthma, and repeated exposure may permanently scar lung tissue. So even as the number of particulate pollution-related deaths has slightly improved between 2010 and 2017, ozone-related deaths here in Utah rose in that time period. So that lends urgency to the efforts that we're talking about today. That's why improving air quality is driving my priorities in the House Transportation Bill. And in particular, one of the things that I'm pushing for is additional funding for what's called the No and Low Emissions Grant Program. This program is a source of future money for electric bus service like the one that's offered by this bus behind us. The grant program also provided UDOT with $2.2 million for Park City Transit's purchase of battery electric buses and chargers that they've been using with great success. So electric vehicles, as we all know, solve the issue of tailpipe emissions. Tailpipe emissions make up 57% of our air pollution along the Wasatch Front. So as we shift increasingly to electric vehicles, and with buses like this, that will only reduce the emissions coming from tailpipes. I also asked in my priorities full funding for the bus and bus facility program, which has helped to connect Salt Lake and Utah Valley clean bus replacement and modernization. State and local elected officials here in Utah, as I know because I've worked with them for a long time, they've been doing a lot to support clean air initiatives. So I want the federal government to step up and to be a good partner to the state of Utah and to our cities and counties on those efforts that they're engaging in. And the first step would be fully funding these grant programs, and that's an important step in accomplishing these goals, and what I can do and what the federal government can do to help to support the incredible efforts that are happening at the local level to improve our air. We know Utah needs more clean bus service, more bus service, both because it's an affordable public transportation option, but it'll also contribute to our clean air. As more people have the option of getting out of their car and choosing public transit, that will reduce tailpipe emissions, and then if we can make our public transit even cleaner, it'll reduce our pollution even more. So with that, let me turn the time over to Carlton Christensen to talk about UTA's efforts in that regard. Carlton.
Good morning. I'm Carlton Christensen, Chair of the Board of Trustees for the Utah Transit Authority, and I'm especially pleased to be working with Congressman McAdams, who has brought us together to highlight the important roles of federal funding and the vision for public transit services we provide every day. As Ben has indicated, this is a community effort, and with me today we have several of our key partners utilizing the federal grants and other funds we need for modern transit resources like this electric bus. I'd like to recognize each of these leaders and their incredible support and effort as they provide a collaborative drive toward more efficient and responsive public transit across the Wasatch Front. With us today are Mayor Jeff Silverstreeny from Mill Creek, Jen McGrath, Interim Director for the Department of Community and Neighborhoods for Salt Lake City, James Campbell, Legislative Policy Advisor for Rocky Mountain Power, and then also with us is Alma Allred, Executive Director of Commuter Services for the University of Utah. After my brief remarks, Mayor Silverstreeny will speak, followed by Jen McGrath, and finally James Campbell. Air quality is a community outcome. It's also a community responsibility, and it requires partnership. At UTA, we are proud to join with our elected representatives, including Congressman McAdams, local government leadership, academia, and private sector partners as we provide cleaner air and a healthier environment and economy across the Wasatch Front. This collaboration with the University of Utah, New Flyer, CalSTART, Utah State University and Rocky Mountain Power, and the Utah Office of Energy Development, as well has brought together an opportunity for us to have a total of 5 electric buses scheduled to be added to our fleet. This also includes 5 electric charging stations and 1 en route charger. We've also are engaging a third-party service to evaluate the bus's performance and validate the outcomes that we desire. I want to emphasize the vital role of the federal partnership with the Federal Transit Administration in this project. The vast majority of the cost of these buses is being covered by the Federal Transit Administration's Low and No Emission Vehicle Program. This is the first low-no grant at UTA that we've received, and we're most grateful for it. And our efforts, like those of Congressman McAdams, to continue such federal support is critical to us. Every time you ride the bus, no matter whether it's a clean diesel, compressed natural gas, or electric buses, every time you take tracks, front runner, or any time you choose UTA as a public transit instead of driving, you help clean our air and you become part of the solution to make Utah a better and a healthier place to live. Let's ride the bus and clean the air together. Mayor Silverstreeny.
Thank you, Carlton. I'd like to welcome everybody to Mill Creek this morning. And the sunshine is my responsibility here. So, as in local government, we are really in the trenches and at the forefront of planning for growth in Utah and addressing the air quality problems that we have here. And we're doing the best that we can to plan for a future that predicts our population doubling, and still addressing the issues we have regarding air quality and being able to get around in this valley. And so I'm very appreciative of partners like UTA and help from the federal government to provide us with resources that we need in order to execute the plans that we make for growth and to make it easier for people to use transit and improve our air quality. So thanks a lot for your help, guys, and I'll turn it over to Jen McGrath.
Carlton sees how short I am. Thank you, Congressman McAdams. It is my pleasure to be here today. The Low No Emissions Competitive Program provides funding to state and local governments for the purchase or lease of zero-emission or low-emission transit buses, as well as the acquisition, construction, and leasing of required facilities needed to support these vehicles. This grant, which provides federal funding for alternative vehicles, made the purchase of vehicles like this one possible. In 2016, the Utah Transit Authority received a $5.4 million low or no emission vehicle development grant from the Federal Transit Administration to purchase 5 electric buses. In August of this year, in partnership with UTA, Salt Lake City will begin our city-sponsored increase to service on routes 2, 9, and 21. 3 of those 5 buses purchased with the Low-No grant funds will run as a pilot on Route 2. This increased service will bring greater frequency to fill gaps in the evening, midday, and weekend service, provide service on east-west routes connecting our communities, and improve the quality of transit stops. Increased bus service will help clean our air, especially when we have clean vehicles. Mayor Wyskupski is committed to delivering clean energy solutions that will simultaneously improve air quality, protect public health, and deliver local jobs. These buses on this route are the perfect complement to that commitment. We want to thank Congressman McAdams for his support of clean vehicle grants that help us bring clean transit vehicles to Salt Lake City. We also want to thank UTA, who has been our partner in delivering this incredible service. The decision to test electric buses on a Salt Lake City route, specifically this route, with our new city-sponsored service increases, is one more sign that Salt Lake City and UTA share a vision for outstanding transit service and clean transit vehicles in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rocky Mountain Power is excited to be here and excited to work with these wonderful partners with UTA and the communities and the university. And as the congressman stated, how electrified transportation really is the solution to addressing our local air quality, but it's also the solution to address global emissions and carbon emissions and greenhouse gases as well. So we're committed to help enable an electrified transportation system, and we're going to continue to work with these wonderful partners. And on top of that, we're committed to transitioning our generation fleet over to more cleaner and sustainable resources so we can supply these wonderful vehicles with clean sources. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm sure we're all available for one-on-ones. Thank you, Carlton. Good to see you in this new role. And Mayor Silvestrini, Jen, thank you for all that, and Rocky Mountain Power, thank you for all that you're doing.